Hello, beautiful souls. I am recording this episode on April 2nd, which means we've just gotten through the first eclipse season of the year. We've entered into the next equinox season, whether it's spring or autumn, depending on where you're listening. And we are in a fiery Aries season. So, the first thing I want to do today is give you some words that came up when I was channeling and bringing information in for the month of April and for this podcast episode. And the words are momentum and action in the fiery energy of Aries, and it's important that intentionality be used with those words. Expansion, creativity, and springboard. So, all of that to me is setting us up for a go season, especially the first couple weeks of the month. It is all about taking aligned, intentional action. Build that momentum and use it as a springboard moving forward. And also the grounding of those things into our heart energy and into the space of love, especially when looking at love versus fear. I've long been a believer in the love versus fear, only two options way of thinking and being in the world. And it's so important, especially when we're feeling stress or feeling overwhelmed or feeling just done with all that's going on around us and within us at some times, is to center on love and remember that in the choice of love versus fear, always center back on love, always return to love, always return to love, and ground into that energy. And as I've said before in previous episodes, now is the time to come forward from that heart centered space in all of us. And it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has to be all mushy gushy and sappy, because I know that's not how all of us are. And I get that. And we want alignment with genuine heart centered energy. For example, that would be something like, or coming from a perspective of thinking about people, thinking about your impact on people, thinking about how you show up. And are you showing up from that grounded, heart centered space of knowing that love is greater than fear and that we are all connected and we are here to serve and be a part of this time on our planet. So, showing up in your work as 100% aligned with who you are and in the most genuine, authentic versions of yourselves, and showing up in your life true to who you are in all of those same ways, and showing up for what you do in the community and how you serve and how you give back in those same ways. So, how does that translate into the day to day? It really is first and foremost about remembering and connecting to who we truly are and looking at all of the things we value. And I have talked about this before. It continues to be at the forefront of where we're moving forward, coming from a place of our values and what's important to us and how we want to show up in the world, and centering ourselves in our heart and in our minds and spirits from that perspective, because that is the energy that you put out in the world. And whether you believe in energy, whether you believe in gut feelings, whether you can just tell when you meet someone, what the connection is, or you can feel the connection or not, putting your energy and your authenticity forward facing in all that you do changes the way that you interact with people and the way that people interact with you. I've always heard and been a longtime believer, even before there were words around it, I think, in my brain, about energy leads the way. You feel someone's energy oftentimes before you hear them utter a word. Think about right now, for example, you're either listening to me on a device or on a computer or watching me on a device or a computer. And even before I said a word, there's energy there. And if you think about gut feelings and meeting people and having the experience of, hmm, and there's something that feels off about this energy in this situation. And on the other side of that, wow, there's something that feels so genuine. I want to know more about this person and being drawn in by the energy. It's important for many reasons to pay attention to that, especially when you have some questions, you have some doubts about it. Listen to your gut and trust your gut. And then on the other side of the spectrum that I've mentioned, when you feel connected and drawn in by that energy, absolutely go forward and learn more about that person because there's an energy connection there. So it really begins and ends with knowing yourself and knowing your values and knowing how you want to show up in the world and reconnecting with that on the regular. We are not perfect beings. We are all human. And there are days when we just don't get there. And I am just as likely as the rest of you to have those days, trust me. And it never leaves me feeling good though. I always feel like a ugh. I know to do better. I know to ground into my energy and trust all of these things. And yet sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. Most of the time I do, and I'm intentional. And this month, particularly in the first couple weeks, there's a lot of forward momentum and a lot of energy that's going to help you get shit done, check off those things on your list. It's gonna also inspire you to take action moving forward on things that you have been thinking about, or things, ideas, creative ideas, work ideas, business ideas, community ideas that have been in the background over the last few months. Last few months have been tough for most of us. Been dark, it's been winter, it's been feeling like we're buried, but we're really being planted. We were planted, and I really feel like now is the time that those germinations, if you will, and that darkness and that slowness for many of us, energetically especially, was the time for these things to germinate. So think back on the past few months, or maybe they're right there at the forefront of your mind. What has been inspired in you? What are you ready to bring forward into the world? And do take steps to bring those things forward. And the other part that is so important is to be intentional about it. This fast moving energy with momentum can also drive us forward in a way that is impulsive and is a way that ends up taking more time and costing us more time in the long run, if that makes sense. So I really encourage you to bring these gifts and these seedlings out early in this month, and they will receive the sunlight they need. They will receive the energy they need. And it is a springboard for you moving forward, for us moving forward. Creativity abounds during this time. Whether or not you consider yourself a creative person, we are all creative. We are all creative in so many different ways. I think society has trained us that creativity oftentimes means that we're an artist or a poet or something like that, when the reality of it is there's creativity everywhere, right? Have you created a new program, or have you created a new way of organizing and creating a system in your business? That is creative. Have you created a new process or implemented a new project in your job? Have you created a new way of being the best leader that you can in your job or community? That is creative. It's pulling together things and ideas and making them manifest in this physical plane, in this time now. So, I encourage you to really look at ways that creativity comes through you. Some of us garden, some of us cook, some of us are mixologists and like to come up with new drinks, and some of us like to bake. Some of us are artists and do create art, whether we're artists or not, written, sculpting, painting, creating collage, or just endless ways to be creative. And I really encourage you to breathe into that and really think about the ways that you're creative in your life in a non typical way of looking at things, if you will. Inclusive. It's inclusive of all of the potential ways we can be creative in our lives. I encourage you to spend some time doing that this week when you hear this podcast. Getting back to the values and the centering on important elements of yourself that you may or may not be bringing forward in the world, focusing on that, and then looking at your elements of creativity. And then if you have something that you know you want to create, do it. Start with the littlest step that you can, if that's what you want to do. Intentional aligned action. Intentional aligned action. I tell my clients and people I work with that all the time. Intentional aligned action. Even the tiniest step gets met with universal support. So it is also I'm just going to tell you what I saw when I was meditating and getting guidance for the topic for this month. In addition to the words about the energy and the intentionality and authenticity that is being called forth in all of us, the visual that I got, which really inspired this last little tangent on creativity, was so picture a square or rectangular garden box or picture frame, wood around the edges. That's what I saw. And then I saw picture like a NASA picture of space, like a nebula or a star system or something like that. I don't know how to actually what the name of it is, but you can see stars, you can see swirling colors, and it was inside of this square rectangular, I think it was, box, wooden framed box. And I got to look at it for a little while, which I love space things and stars and planets and all that kind of stuff. So I spent some time really looking at that and leaning into the beauty and the expansiveness and the energy and the creative energy that I felt coming from that. I just literally was smiling. And as I was doing that and looking into that, the four sides of the box came apart and went away. And the vision of this space space picture, for lack of better languaging, just continued to expand. So to me, what that meant was, wow, first of all, it was so beautiful. And next, that creativity expands when we lean into it and when we remove the boundaries and we remove the parameters that either we place around it or that society places around it. So the creativity theme just was so vivid in my mind and in my spirit that I really wanted to couple that with the momentum, action oriented energy of the beginning part of this month. It really goes through the whole month, but it grounds in later in the month into a more of a grounded, less fiery, driven kind of energy. Doesn't dissuade the fact that you will be able to continue to make progress moving forward. Anyway, so I think the takeaways for today's episode are really, really to be present. I know that in conversations with some of you and messages with some of you, the last month, a couple months for many of us have been heavy. There's been a lot of loss. There's been a lot of sadness. There has been just the feeling of walking through quicksand or deep stuck mud. Nothing was happening fast. It was a a momentous task to even move forward, let alone try and get projects off the ground and energies out into the world that come from that expansive place. It took a lot more energy and a lot more focus. That is shifting. I started feeling it in the days before the equinox. I could feel it lightening up and it has continued. There was a little bit of a time, probably around the eclipse, the second eclipse, where it felt a little bit heavier and more inward focusing. And then as of Monday, Tuesday, like the last day of March, first day of April, I could really feel that energy surge. And I'm actually glad I waited to record this because it feels so much faster and in a good way, not like a faster gonna get bowled over. Although you will if you don't be intentional about what you wanna do. That is another thing. If you are not intentional about where you wanna go, how you wanna get there, and taking aligned action, you will be dragged. So really pay attention to where you wanna go this month, what you wanna do, how you wanna start things, how you want to implement things, how you want to show up for things and people. Again, remembering heart lens, like love centered, show up genuinely as who you are. Show up with those visions of change and create use of creative energy that are there for all of us and ripe for the plucking, if you will, and pulling down into the universe and into our workplaces and our businesses and our communities and in our families and in our homes. It's there. It's there. So, my beautiful souls, I want to just encourage you to do all of that one step at a time with intentionality, with the knowing that we are all so supported. We are all guided. Trust your own intuition and go forward with love and light and joy and beauty. Remember to be present to every moment of beauty that surrounds you and every moment of joy that is available to all of us. Big love, and I'll see you next time.